She Makes It Happen, a series of online conversations unlocking theatre making with female artists. Produced by Little Soldier Productions with the support of Spain Arts and Culture and Spanish Embassy in London.
Okay, hello, my name is Patricia Rodriguez.
My name is Mercè Ribot, and we are both co-artistic directors of Little Soldier Productions. And today we welcome our friend and artist, Almudena Adalia. Hola, Almudena.
Hello. Hello, hola.
We do normally speak Spanish among each other, so it's gonna be a little bit strange for us, but we will try in English. So let's welcome everyone. Welcome to our series of online conversations. She Makes It Happen, unlocking theatre making with female and leading international artists of Spanish heritage, and this is supported by Spain Arts and Culture and the Spanish Embassy in London. Great. So before we go ahead with tonight's conversation, we'd like to introduce our guest, Almudena Adalia. Almudena is a director, a puppeteer, a workshop facilitator, a producer and co-artistic director of the international company Sin Espacio Teatro, based in Madrid, which specializes in visual theatre. We met Almudena at the Greenwich Theatre. We shared a glass of wine with mutual friend after having performed our show, You and Me. You remember, it was a long time ago. It was all smiles and laughter and the beginning of a long artistic and also personal friendship. After many years in the UK theatre, Almudena has recently moved to Madrid, and we want to talk to her about new beginnings, about changing roles, as she does many things, as you have heard, and her long love for puppetry. I want to say something else as well. Almudena is the most enthusiastic person I've ever met. It's a joy to be with, a joy. I said it.
So just kind of going back a little bit, just looking at your career and training, Almudena actually started as a lawyer. Studied law in Spain, and after graduating she moved into the performing arts and gained an MA in cultural management in La Universidad Complutense de Madrid before training as a puppeteer and graduating from the Curious School of Puppetry. Almudena has been part of the creative and production teams of many prestigious companies and has worked on productions that have been performed in the West End, Barbican Centre, the Fringe, Manipulate Festival, Festival de Castilleres, Matadero Madrid, and La Casa Encendida, amongst others. Almudena also creates and produces her own work that has been supported by the British Council, the Arts Council, England, Puppet Animation Scotland, and Instituto Internacional de la Marioneta.
Almudena is also very passionate about teaching, facilitating. She has run courses at the Colchester University of Performing Arts and workshops for professionals and children in theatre and in theatres and schools. Almudena has also been using her skills in social context, including recently with Plena Inclusión in Madrid. Almudena, as we said earlier, now she lives in Madrid, and she is working full on with her company Sin Espacio Teatro, which specializes in puppetry, crafts, and, as I said, visual theatre. So, Almudena, welcome. Sorry, it's long, it's your fault. It's your fault. You work hard.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. This is absolutely great. And the only shame is like, oh, you are so far. I want to be there.
So if we weren't so far, if we were in a bar, one question that we've asked everyone, what would be the beverage of your choice?
Well, I think a glass of red wine.
Glass of red wine.
Yes.
Very nice. We'll make it for next time.
Large.
Well done. Well,
it's a matter of justice. We met with a glass of wine on our hands, I had to do it.
Very wise you are. Okay, so what are you up to these days?
Well, as you said, yeah, I know. Well, as you said, I'm in Madrid. I came back from the UK in 2018, sort of. Although during these 2 last years, I've been also in contact with my community there. But the truth is I'm here, so I had to start again. So I had to start the journey again. So make some calls, looking for new people, and try to join new interesting projects. So it's slow, but it's going well, and it's fun. But yeah, also, I mean, that's my mind state now, let's say, and I'm vigilant, I'm open, I'm trying to find new ways.
And also you've started a theatre company.
Yes, exactly. So I've been yeah, in terms of actual action, I've been combining working for theatre companies as a puppeteer and also as an assistant to director. I was in a project there, a couple of projects, and also I have a creative partner, which is a wonderful illustrator and puppet maker and prop maker. So we started this together, and we've been developing and creating different shows or projects, most of them in Spain, in Madrid, but also we traveled to Edinburgh once. So yeah, that's my thing. And at the moment, I will say that I'm a little bit, I mean, there's a little bit of contradiction in what I'm going to say, but I'm in a standby because of the situation, but also I am, this is a literal translation, I'm sitting, so I'm sembrando, no, sitting, trying to soon collect, to do the harvest. So I'm developing, it's the very early stages of a new project, very interesting, inspired by 2 women, real people, who were part of a very important movement in Spain called La Sin Sombrero. It was a group of women who were artists and women who were artists and belonged to the cultural life, a scientific life in Madrid. And they were contemporary to another artist, male artists, who were very famous internationally, like Salvador Dalí, well, Lorca, but these specific women, they were not specialized, so their work, it wasn't as important as the other one. So I'm investigating that using puppetry. And
what are the names of these 2 not so visible?
Maruja Maggio, visual artist, painter, and Concha Mendez, who is a poet and a playwright for children.
We'll make a note and look at the
yeah, I really recommend it. So early stages, we also, I wanted to push a little bit the boundaries of my discipline, and I hadn't worked with suitcases, adapting suitcases to tell a story. So I'm working on that.
Fantastic. So we'll hear a little bit more about your suitcases project. But before we go into that, I think we have to find you as a puppeteer everywhere in social media. And when we did think that we were going to talk to you, we said puppeteer. But I think especially in Spain, there's a lot of misconceptions, or there seem to be quite a lot of misconceptions, or maybe lack of understanding of the craft, the puppetry craft. Tell us a little bit more about your discipline and your profession, and how would you describe your profession?
Well, there is a quote. I would like to start with a quote, yes, because for me it opened up a lot. This quote, well, I was studying at the Curie School of Puppetry, and the director, Sarah Wright, the first day of the school, told us a quote by Christopher Lee, who was a very famous puppeteer. He's not alive anymore, but he was a British one, great. And the quote was, "Puppets tell the story frame by frame. As puppeteers, our task is to move them, the puppets, from one frame to another with generosity and precision. So that blew my mind. It's like, yeah, is that. This quote always is with me when someone new starts a journey in the world of puppetry, or I try to explain what puppetry is. But apart from that, obviously, I think it's my understanding, puppetry is an art form itself. And it's very complete art form because combines elements from the performing arts, but also from the visual arts, in terms of fine arts and visual arts. So that makes it a discipline that needs a lot of collaboration between different professionals, and that's fun. That's really good fun. And obviously, as you said, well, I'm a passionate person, and one of my passions is puppetry. And I think it's passion. I mean, I like puppetry. I enjoy with puppetry because it allows you to travel, to go into imaginary worlds that maybe actors cannot. Allows you also to create fun characters, interesting characters in a different way. It allows you to connect with your audiences in a different way, in a different level, because at the end you want to tell a story. You want to communicate with your audiences, so they can add layers to your story, and also the way you connect with your audiences is a little bit different. There is something here that maybe we'll talk about it later, but I was thinking, okay, why we think normally that puppets are more for children, and I think it's because there are several things, theories I'm making up, I think, but I think there is something about so a puppet, the way they communicates to the audience, the child is more free to believe that thing is alive, and it's more free to allow the children allow themselves to connect more with these imaginary worlds that they feel safe in those imaginary worlds. It's normal for them, but an adult, for an adult takes more time for that. But once when there is a connection, it's like, wow. Yeah.
And how did that happen for you? Because we mentioned in your biography,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be a lawyer. Almudena, the lawyer.
We should make a show.
I object. I could see that. Okay.
Sorry.
Back to the question.
We start going for los temas de Google.
I want to ask, how did that journey happen for you? From studying law, then going into cultural management, I can imagine that there has been like a shift there, and then landing into the puppetry. Well, it's unusual in a way,
Yeah.
that.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
How did that happen? What was the?
Well, in my case, it was because I was lucky enough to be part of the production of The Lion King, the musical, the Disney musical. That was in 2011. This one, the company Stage Entertainment brought here into Spain the production to make the production in Spanish, so the Spanish production basically. So I was part of the production team, but I was lucky enough again to be with the director, main director in the rehearsal room. So I was more or less in charge of helping in the rehearsal room, in the main rehearsal room of let's call it character rehearsal room, because there were. So a musical is a massive thing, so many people work, and then you have musical directors, choreography directors. No? So, but I was more into directing them into production. Yes. But I also was helping in the puppetry and mask department. So, and then that was the moment And also into directing, because I discovered that role myself, no, and the way things can be done. So then I moved to England after that. So I stayed for 3 months with them. That's the time the production needed to be staged. Yeah, exactly. And lucky enough, so the international supervisor told me, you know, we're gonna do the United Kingdom tour. You want to join and do the same role because you get along very well with the director, with John. And I said, yes. So then I went to the UK. And then one thing took me to the other, taking decisions, taking risks. I was with Blind Summit, one of the most well-known companies for puppetry for adults, because of a contact from the Lion King. And with my limited English, entering the wall of this company, which is great, but now I think about it, oh my goodness, how did I come?
You entered the world of puppetry through these amazing companies. Like And if someone doesn't know...
And the rehearsal room, which is very important, because everything's about being in the space, in the rehearsal room too.
And seeing the process and making and... Just really quickly before we move into this process, maybe you can, for some people who are not maybe as familiar with puppetry, can you recommend us a few companies that they do puppetry for adults? That it's because we have this misconception that puppetry is for children. Okay. So because there's in the UK it's quite common, and a lot of companies use it, and maybe not so much in Spain. So
in Spain, I'm still finding out how everything works here. So there are a lot of companies. You mean in Spain or in England? You want me to?
In England, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So in England, I think there was a change. That's how I see it. There was a change of the understanding of puppetry, I think, when the South African company Handspring, so that's a recommendation, was told, or well, was brought into the West End to do Warhorse. So for those who don't know what Warhorse is, it's a story about the first a horse who was in the war, in the Great War, and get lost and blah blah blah. But the story is a story for adults, and it's very charged story. But they have puppets, and one of the main puppets is the horse, and people got in love with that. So adults started trusting on puppetry because they started understanding that puppets are not just Muppets. Muppets are the ones who you move the mouth, and they're very talkative. So there are other ways of communicating with puppets. So that was a very good starting point. So Handspring is a very good example. The one I said, Blind Summit. There are theatre companies, more physical theatre companies, who use puppets on their shows, as for example, Complicité, Plot Ensemble, and Knee High is one of my most inspiring companies in the UK. And they tend to use puppets. It's not a puppetry show, but they feel the need to have some kind of puppetry on them. And then I think there is something interesting about festivals, puppetry festivals, because for us puppeteers, I think it's a way of having networks between us, because such a niche, it's a niche. So when you go to festivals, you are able to connect with other people who have the same interests, that maybe in another way will be more difficult. But I think it's also a good opportunity as a showcase for people who don't know what puppetry is. They have a massive amount of possibilities to see those things. And I think in the UK, in Spain as well, but there are a lot of good festivals. even Mime Festival in London, which is super famous, Barbican, they have sometimes a lot of companies with adults which are puppetry, and yeah.
So let's go a little bit into your process of making shows. When so how do you start a process? How and where do you find the inspiration to the impulse of starting a new project?
Well, I think I'm a kind of person who is very open for finding inspiration everywhere. So it can be a little bit overwhelming because obviously not everything is valid, not all the ideas go forward, but I'm a kind of person who I think I like to be open to the world. And there was something that one of my teachers we did an exercise with her, Rini Baker, and a great director and puppeteer and teacher. She was saying it was an exercise. It was listen and look, and it was about going into the streets, into the booths, just to open and listen to the world. So I think that's my attitude. Like naturally, I have this kind of attitude, and then the people I've been working with or my sources of inspiration, they are a little bit like that. So inspiration could come from something you find on the streets, or a piece, something in nature, or a poem, or a character. In this case, with my current project, these two characters from history. So I think can be anywhere. I make connections. I make connections quite easily. I say, yeah, I think we could do this, and then I think, oh, this person is a magician. Oh, I'm gonna contact him because I think we need a magic on this, and like working with different people is important for me. But it is true that I'm a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and I overwhelm myself, and then I forget about things. So I decided to have a box of ideas. Yeah. So you have the box of ideas, you write it down, and then months later or years later, whatever, oh, let's see what we have, what I have on my box. And then it's like, oh, no, I don't think this is gonna happen. Oh yeah, this one, maybe this one I can use it now. So it's a little bit like that. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Like there's a documentary with Woody Allen who did that. Like he would write things and then it's like, and it's amazing. Yeah,
I also have post-its on walls all the time, and notebooks, but sometimes the notebooks go through all the notebooks is tiring. So post-its and
brilliant.
But,
and so you were saying that for you it's important who's in the team, and you find an idea and then you pair it with someone. Who is in your room when you start the rehearsal process, and what do you look for in a team member? Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning, puppetry it's an art form that needs needs from the it's a performing art, but also it's a visual art, it's a fine art. So you need to work with a person who is specializing in making, in drawing. So you need a maker. Sometimes the director can be a maker itself, of course, but in my case, I can make, because I think when you direct puppets, you need to go through the process of puppeteering and making, but I need to work with a maker. And that's why I'm currently with this girl, I'm working with Pili. We get along very well because she does this work and I do the other. So it's very important to trust this maker. And you need a writer as well. You need someone who, even if it's, because in puppet it's about the visuals more than the words, although puppets can speak, but you need someone who is able to, even if it's just that visual script, you need to work together. And you also need the puppeteer. So it's a big team, and it's a team that needs to work together. It's not like, oh, the writer is in his house. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna, what do you want to write about? Social climate change. Okay, I'm gonna write you the story. Hey, here is the story. Now I direct it. No, it's
it's a devising process.
So they need to be in the room with you.
You need to be, yeah. So before being in the room, you need to work a little bit with the person who is in charge of writing and the person who is in charge of the making, because you need to talk about the concept of the show, of if it's an adaptation of a playwright or whatever. So you need to find out a common floor, a common ground.
Yeah.
To start working and bring material to the rehearsal room. When you are in the room with certain kind of material, can be objects, can be paper, can be some prototypes of puppets, can be anything, then you start working with your puppeteers and then you come back. It's back and forth. And for me, something very important is drawing and storyboards. So first of all, instead of writing your story, you draw your story frame by frame. That's why that quote is so important. It's more like animation in this sense.
And do you only work with puppeteers or?
No, because actually I like the shows that, yes, puppetry shows, but I also, I much more like shows that is mix of discipline. But it's important, there's something very important for me, is things need to be a meaning. It's the same when you choose a kind of puppet, why you need that. First of all, why you need a puppet, and what can you do with it, no? And it's the same for when I work with people who are in physical theater or people who work with masks. You need to find this common, you need to find meaning into what you want to, what you need them to add. Why do I need a dancer for this shadow theater play, for example? Do I need a dancer? Do I need, what do you need a person who's more specializing in physical theater or a storyteller? So, but I like a lot mixing professionals, yeah, with a meaningful, yeah.
And before we're going into the puppet making and the puppets itself, I want to jump forward a little bit and then we can come back to that. What if we go into your rehearsal room? What do we see in your rehearsal room?
Ooh.
I think it's important, the space. And
yes, okay, the space is so important to me. It's very, very important because it's the place you're going to be with a lot of people. It needs to be comfortable, and I rather prefer places with natural light. First of all, I prefer places which are not black. It
might be tricky if you do some shadow puppetry.
Yeah, when it's shadow puppetry, no, you have to black out. But that's a very good point. But in general, I like spaces like have windows, like you feel free on the space. No, they are not charged in this way. Tidiness is very, very, very important because at the end you end up going into the room with a lot of materials. Because at the end I want everyone in the rehearsal room to participate in the process. So I want everyone writing, although maybe we don't use the pieces of writing they did, or I want everyone going through the process of making, of performing. So you end up with boxes or or suitcases with loads of the stuff. So I normally have tables where we place objects, puppets. If it's related to shadow theater, all the technical equipment, silhouettes, fabrics. So everything divided into departments. Also, one of the walls need to be for pin-up references, visual references, visual sources of inspiration, to write timelines, episodes of your performance. So a place to write on the walls, and I also like I mean, breaks are really important because especially when you work with shadow theater, it's really tiring being in the dark room. So it's very important to leave the space when it's needed for breaks and do not eat in the space. That's something really important to me because at the end, yeah, you need to get off the space, do other things and come back. If you need to go for a lunch or eat something, but out.
And And now you mentioned like all these kind of types of puppets, shadow puppetry, or when does the kind of puppet come into the process? I mean, like, when do you decide, okay, this is a shadow puppet show, or is another kind of puppet, or, you know, how is it something that you think about before, or kind of comes after?
It depends on the project, but normally I will say that you need to ask yourself, why do you want a puppet? So basically, first of all, have a clear idea or some idea about what is your show about, what is your concept. Just the concept, nothing else, just a concept. And then ask yourself why you need a puppet, what this puppet is gonna add, why I'm using a puppet instead of a human being. So then when you understand why you need this puppet or this shadow theater or this object, then you can go into thinking, okay, so for the dramaturgy of the work, which kind of puppetry is the best? Which one is gonna add layers to your story? Which one is gonna be a metaphor? Which one is gonna be a good character? And then you think about technicalities from my point of view, because if you start thinking about technicalities, then you look for solutions because of the technique. Technical, I mean, like if it's yeah, technique basically. So yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And obviously there are puppets that work better. For example, shadow theater is used a lot nowadays in dance, for example. So it depends. Yeah, it depends what you want to tell, basically. Yeah.
And what is once you found the puppet? Yeah. That you're like, okay, we are going to use that. You know, you've developed the show is gone on the road. What's your relationship with those puppets? What's the relationship between the puppet, the director? Actually, before we go into your relationship with the puppets, what's the relationship?
Private relationships. You're going too far, Mercè. You're going too far.
I know.
This is the day you're going to talk about it.
We're going to get there. But actually, what's the relationship between, because we talk about the three people working together, which was like the puppet maker, director, and puppeteer. Yeah. So what's that symbiosis needs to look like when you are making?
Can you repeat your...
What's the relationship between the puppet maker, director, and the puppeteer in the room?
What's the relation?
Yeah.
Well, when you have the puppeteer in the rehearsal room, because normally you work a little bit more with you start working with the maker, just talking through ideas and thinking about prototypes or which kind of objects or things you can bring into the rehearsal room. But when the puppeteer is in the room and is going to start bringing to life a piece of paper, I don't mind. For us, maker and director, is allow this puppeteer to bring to life that puppet and allow things to happen. Allow the puppet to tell. So you need to listen. We need to listen to the needs of the puppet in order to create that character. Because one of the things that puppetry is beautiful about puppetry is puppets don't act. They don't pretend, they are. At the end, an actor, you pretend a role. I mean, that's very simple, but
yes,
in general,
but
I'm gonna undermine anything. But puppet, you three people are creating this character. One person from being the director, from being the outside eye, to allow the other two artists to bring that to life as your maker and as your puppeteer. So that's the relation. It's a back and forth, and the director, I think, is the exterior eye that allows games to play and is able to see something beautiful on how this puppeteer is bring into like a puppet. It's like, yes, it's that's the character. Or you're working with your maker and it's like, oh, I've been thinking about this hair, or I've been thinking about, oh, what do you think about this drawing? It's like, yes, it's that. Continue that way.
And
so,
what happens when the puppet, what happens when one of them is not in the room, for example, the puppet maker is not there or there to be seen, and you receive a puppet, or the puppet maker goes and then you are there with a puppet. Is that a good way, a good practice? What is your advice?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the puppet maker may sometimes, not all the time, cannot be all the time in the rehearsal room, but it's good to have invite the puppet maker. Depends on the development of the piece, but sometimes you want that to invite that person, and then that person, the maker, goes into the workshop and starts saying things and come back. It's like, oh, this is working, this is not working. And sometimes I like so much when accidents happen. So I mean, maybe the puppet maker has finished the work, but then the puppet has some kind of, I'm not gonna say default, but maybe doesn't, something weird on the walking or something, and this is character, for example, no? So I like accidents in this way. That
A happy accident, a good accident. I want to retake the question that Mercè was asking earlier. What is the relationship with your parents?
Yes.
There is a lot of mystique, I mean, it's a respectful thing, you know, like you look after you have to look after the puppet that you have created. But, how do you treat your puppet? How do you love them?
You see the wall. I mean, it's not to be appalling because I see the wall. I see puppets everywhere, to be honest. I go to a shop and I have here, I see my mop here. It's a puppet. It's beautiful. It's a puppet. Puppets everywhere. So sometimes it's difficult, like fucking, sorry. Oh my goodness. The relationship with puppets. Yeah. You can be attached to your puppets because at the end it's your creation, right? It's something you've created. So you feel attached to your puppets, you have your favorites. And there is something very beautiful. I don't know.
You have your favorites?
I have favorites. My favorites. Actually, I sometimes think about one puppet I don't have, but I loved. It was very fun. It was called Maja. She was called Maja. It was a puppet show for children. It was about, well, environmental issues and rubbish recycling. It was really fun. And I worked with this wonderful puppet maker, Donovan, Amber Donovan, and she made Maya, and it was so beautiful. But it was a commission, so we were hired by a theater company who wanted to make a show with puppets. So we were hired. I put together the team. I was hired and I put together the team. But then the puppets didn't belong to us. And it was like, we had to leave. Bye! It was so cute. It was wonderful, Maya. So yeah, you get attached to the puppet. But yeah, I mean, I think it is normal. And there is something very interesting, which is, we are talking about puppetry in an entertainment setting, but puppets are very good also, not only to tell stories, but very good in education and in health environments, to heal traumas. And that was something that really, so when you make the puppet, you get attached to it because you are making it. So imagine if what you are making is because you have to heal something.
Yes.
And this story, I was like, pelos como escarpias, because there was last year in the Centro Dramático Nacional, CDN, did something which was amazing, which were some conferences called Sana Sana. It was puppetry títeres in mental health. And there was these different projects from different parts of the world came, and we had 3 amazing days. So it was this woman from Chile who had worked with a group of moms, of ladies, of women whose children had died, had been killed, kidnapped in the war. So the way they were dealing through, I mean, the way they were dealing their trauma was through making the puppet of the son. And I was like, ooh la la. so yeah, you get attached, you can get attached to them.
That is like...
But I also, it was really, really moving. And well, that was one of the stories, but there were lots of stories. So puppets can be used, can give a lot, and it's normal to be attached. And also, I've got a puppet here that you might be attached to too.
Okay.
Maybe we'll come to that. We'll come to that at the end. Before we go into the puppet and we see the puppet, I think because we are just talking about this, and you've recently have done some work with young adults with Down syndrome and also mental health and
yes.
So what is tell us a little bit more about your experience in with
the project, the actual, I mean, this project, right? Yeah, so
as well, the relationship that they had with the
yeah. Okay. How long?
Not much, actually. I need to remind people that if they want to leave, we have a question as well already in the chat. So if you want to leave some questions, do now, and then we'll go into it in about 5 minutes. I wanted to also talk about the dramaturgical process, because it's very different than, you know, like the other dramaturgical processes that we've talked to in the last few days with other artists. So yes, tell us about this project, and then we'll go into the dramaturgy.
Okay, yeah. So that was a project. I got this, well, there is an organization called Plena Inclusión who works with vulnerable people in Spain, in Madrid. And they have these residencies, which are called Espacio Convergente, in which you have to apply, and they choose projects, artistic projects, to apply in a setting, in an organization which works with vulnerable people. So yeah, I applied, me and this partner I was talking about, and we applied, Pili and I together, and we got it, and we were sent to work in an organization, Fundación Prodes. And this organization, they work pretty much with people with Down syndrome, or well, in España es diversidad intelectual, ¿vale?
Learning disabilities,
learning diversity, let's call it. So the project was, what we had to do is during 3-4 months at the end, show them our creative process. So the important thing was show the creative process. They had to go through the creative process just to have an insight into something they hadn't had before, and start thinking a different way, you know? So we had several objectives. For example, be more independent, have more confidence, think more creatively, teamwork, quite a lot of objectives. And our medium, the medium we used, was shadow theater. So the starting point was shadow theater. So we went there into the school, the foundation, and it was an amazing journey, because what we thought it was going to be at the beginning, it changed completely, because they were very interested in dance. They were very good dancers. They will love dancing. So we worked a lot with shadow theater and body. That was one of the favorite things. So the way we work, it was we had a rehearsal room, and then we have a workshop as in a place where you can make things. So in the workshop, Pili, my colleague, was leading. So we did a lot of games for spark imagination to draw. We made puppets, silhouettes, storyboards. They learned, they wrote. We wanted them to go through the whole process of puppetry as well. So writing, directing, they had to lead. The whole thing. And then in the rehearsal room, they learned about the technicalities of shadow theater, of puppetry. They manipulated lots of games. But we knew that we had to present a final piece, something. But for us, that was an important thing. So we didn't want to go into the rehearsal room or into the residency and say, okay, we're going to adapt this show. So everything was very free, lots of improvisations, etc. So at the end, what we did was we had a break of 15 days or a month in which Billy and we organized all the work that they had done, including the making. So everything was made by them. Helped sometimes because of cutting and some things, but everything was made by them. So we took the improvisations, which were more interesting, and we put together a show that was made by them. And then we performed it in a professional theater in Madrid, and that was one of the best experiences I've ever had, because the level of professionality that this group of people had was incredible. I was more nervous than them. We did the tech rehearsal in the morning. They stayed for lunch. We had the opening. They had so much fun. And at the end, the audience were laughing and crying. I've never been congratulated in my life as much as that day of the sensitivity that thing they created. Yeah. So yeah, and the relationship, I mean, the discipline opened up a whole world for them, because they think a little bit abstract, and shadow theater is very abstract. So they engage really well. And they were independent after that. People who were a little bit shy at the beginning, they were the best ones. So they were and it's a route I'm taking, actually.
When are you doing? Oh, I was gonna ask, like, when are you doing the next one? Like, because it feels.
Yeah, sadly, we were having conversation, because that happened. The opening was in February, and sadly, I mean, we were having conversations about continuing, because the director of the Fundación wanted to continue, but coronavirus came, so they are
falling a little bit.
You'll get back on it for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about audience, because we always in this She Makes It Happen talks, we always talk about audience and the relationship of the maker with the audience. Some people have it in mind, some people do not think it's all about the audience, some people all they think is about the audience. What's your view on this one?
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely. I think about the audience. I think for me it's important, because at the end, as a creator or maker, you want them to feel safe, and so that's important to me, especially with this art, because I think sometimes people who go to see things with puppets, because they're a little bit more associated with kids or with the kind of puppets they've seen in television, more educational ones, maybe they say like, so I want them to feel safe. And I want them to reconcile with the child they have inside and leave this out, because it's fun, doesn't matter, don't worry. And I also want them to work. What I mean is, like, I like metaphors, so I want them to fill the gaps. So that's important to me, is working with image and metaphor, and filling the gap, and then have a nice time, and laughter, and it's this kind of melancholy and laughter. No, that's the, because it's what I want when I want to see a show. I want laughter. I want to cry. I want to laugh. I want to be transported into imaginary worlds. I want people who take risks. So yeah,
it's a balance as well, taking risks and feeling safe at the same time. And
yeah, exactly. That's super difficult. But yeah.
I guess that takes us a little bit back to the dramaturgy, in terms of, like, how do you achieve that, and how do you even when you construct a story, how do you script the story? What's the process like for puppetry show?
Well, it's a lot of back and forth. Well, I suppose it depends whether it's an adaptation of something which is written, or is something completely new, something which you start with from a concept or from a character from history. But in general, I think if it's an adaptation, I like to take the story or the point you want to adapt and then divide it in a way you can just simplify it. It's like what do I really need to tell the story with images? So if you take, I don't know, the Three Little Pigs, for example, like a fairy tale, very simple. So divide it into, okay, what do I need to say? I need to say that there were three little pigs who lived with a mother, and the mother chucked them out of the house. And then that's important to create the storyboards. So for me, it's basic storyboards, because what you have here, you need to see here in order to go into the rehearsal room and have it here. But I think you need to be very flexible because there's a lot of back and forth, a lot. And what it made sense for you suddenly doesn't make sense because it doesn't work visually, or is very redundant, or it doesn't add anything. So for me, at the end of the process, it's very important to come back to the script and say, is it adding something? Is it adding something? No. Okay, I chuck it. And be able to chuck your ideas, be able to be fresh and be simple. So start simple, which is very difficult. Start simple and then add. Storyline is, timelines is very important as well. But one of the most different things I found is about the storyboards. I think it's more like cinema or animation.
Yeah. And when do you think it's finished, the piece? When do you go like, okay, it's done, I won't touch it anymore?
I think never. Never. It evolves, never finishes, it evolves. Yeah, because I mean, you change and well, you might be satisfied. I mean, you are happy, satisfied, but it has happened to me that maybe I think about what I did 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I think, my goodness, I will change everything. I wouldn't do like that. So yeah, I don't know. And I mean, at the end, it's finished when it's like, okay, in a week I have to to do an open, you know. So we have to finish this. Please stop thinking. Is right. Yeah.
Good.
Right, and you also, apart from the being a director and also a puppeteer, you've also worked as puppetry consultant for companies like Toba Immediate and Total Insight. Okay, is this puppetry consultant, is this an essential role when you're intending to have a puppet or manipulating an object in the room?
I didn't know that this was a role until I knew, but yeah, definitely it's crucial. So if there is a company who wants to have a puppet for the first time, it's a director who is the first time that has a puppet on their show, doesn't know anything. For me, I don't think it's gonna work if this person Googles puppet makers and calls, oh, I want a commission, I want a puppet which is blonde, and like a child in general. Okay, that person probably is going to make a beautiful puppet, but then when it hands to you, what's the point? And what's the point of not having this maker with you in the process because of this common back and forth we are saying? So I think it's very important to understand. So for me, first of all, having a meeting with that person and say, okay, so what's the concept of your project? Or what do you want to say to the audience? And why do you want to communicate this, whatever it is, with a puppet, with a shadow, with an object? No, so you need that. Otherwise, it's going to be empty. It's this, I mean, I like so much going to shows in which you have a mixture of things, but sometimes you ask yourself, just for the sake of it, for having it because it's popular. I want shadows in dance because they're popular, but if you don't need them, yeah. So for me, it's important.
What is the most strange or unique object or puppet that you have manipulated or worked with?
Oh God.
You've animated, like, oh, I didn't kind of
And the
finish up.
was I'm trying to think.
I have a question. I have no. Well, I don't know. You try to think.
No, it just came to my mind, and I was picturing myself just now in Canada with this amazing object theatre company, La Pire Espèce. I've been working with them through the British Council, something with the British Council. And I was there this February with Rachel Ward. It was my person I used to work a lot in London. And we were there doing this R&D, and we were going to perform. And suddenly I saw myself trying to do something to see what this object meant with a palette, you know, the palette for painters. Finger there, and then so I was with that, trying to become like an eye here, trying to like, what am I doing? These so silly things. Like, what's the point of this? But it worked. At the end, it worked. It was fun. But yeah, I don't know. Just to myself, just struggling, saying like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's flat.
I have a silly one. I have a silly question. Am I allowed to ask silly questions? Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully I am. Yes. Good.
Yes.
So, okay. So, especially or at least me, when I perform, or well, in general, I don't need to be in a show or anything, but I have this nightmare. I dream that I am about to. The other day I was dreaming that I was opening a show with Angelina Jolie. Anyway, I am dreaming, and then I dream I have to perform, and I do not know my lines. I cannot get access to my costumes, and I will have to go on the stage with
Nothing.
So I wonder, for puppeteers, do you have any nightmare? Puppet related nightmare?
Yes, I think, well, there's something, we didn't go through that route, but I feel safe behind a puppet. I feel safe because we are behind the puppet. So I don't have so much this confidence. I mean, you get nervous, of course, but I feel safer. But one of the nightmares of a puppeteer is the puppet breaks on stage, and it happens. Puppets break on stage. Imagine sometimes what happened. A kind of puppetry I do a lot, and it's my base, which is bunraku puppetry, which you have a puppet, and then you have 3 people working together to bring to life the puppet. And imagine you are there with the head, and suddenly you feel, oh, the head is broken, and you cannot speak to the others. So how do you communicate through the puppet that the puppet is broken, and you need to follow me on our way? I don't lose this head. And if you, I mean, and it's so typical when this happens. The best thing is go for it and play. So play with the puppet. What have you done to me? Killer!
No, look at me. Okay.
Sorry. She was the maker. You make it well. So I think that's the worst nightmare for a puppet maker, that happens on stage. Or you don't find your puppet.
Find your puppet.
Yeah, it can happen. It happened. I'm not gonna say the name of the person, but it happened, and it was something magical. So this friend of mine had this show with lots of puppets. So you need to be very tidy. So you place your puppets in places that are reachable. So she was puppeteering something, a conversation between a queen and a servant was happening, or was about to happen. So the king was calling the servant. Servant! Servant! And suddenly what appears is a hand like this. The hand, because the puppeteer didn't find the puppet of the servant. It's like, what can I do? What can I do? Well, that was just magical. So I seriously, yes, tears. Yes, I was in the audience. I was in the audience, but I could feel the pain of that puppeteer who was actually the director and writer. Like, no, cannot be true. I'm doing this.
It's brilliant.
Just before we are off time already.
Yes.
Got a lovely comment in there saying, can I quickly say Almudena's skills in production and grant application is unparalleled. I always wondered if it came from her law background. She makes projects happen against all odds on top of her artistic skills. Of finishing the talk. Maybe before we remind everyone about Thursday, maybe you could show us the puppet you had before we go.
I have several, but I want to show the one you might be emotional about.
Okay.
So just for everyone else, thank you so much for joining us on Facebook Live and here in the Zoom.
And thank you so much for Spain Arts and Culture, Spanish Embassy in London, for supporting this very interesting, for us at least, I hope for you as well, online conversations. Oh my gosh!
Jaleta.
Long time no see!
She's changed a lot, beautiful hair.
Oh, beautiful.
She's called Angeletta, and she was part of one of our show that we did with Almudena many years ago when we first met in London. Oh wow, she's got
my favorite thing about her is that she's got varicose veins.
Yes, she's got varicose veins. Whether you keep her, whether you keep her, we want to know.
She lives in a box.
Thank you so much, Almudena.
Very nice. Thank you. It's been
thank you for this space. It's very important to have these spaces, I think.
Thank you so much.
Spaces, have fun, and yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for watching. She Makes It Happen was produced by Little Soldier Productions with the support of Spain Arts and Culture and Spanish Embassy in London. For more information about Little Soldier Productions and our online talks, head to www.littlesoldierproductions.co.uk.